Welcome to Phoenix and Flame, my podcast about pushing through and transforming even when you feel like a pile of ash. I'm Dana Skaggs, a psychotherapist known as the Queen of Boundaries. If you are new to Phoenix and Flame, please subscribe so you will be notified of new episodes. Visit Dana Skaggs, DanaSkaggs.com for a free quiz to discover how boundaries are impacting your life. This podcast is not intended as psychotherapy. If you are in crisis, please call 911 or contact your local crisis hotline. Hello, friends. This is Dana, and we have got an amazing guest with us today. We have Birgitta Visser, who is a light empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer, delivering messages from the many master teachers across the multiverse to aid humanity. I want to take a moment and say, wow, that is a lot. That sounds so amazing and impressive. Birgitta, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you so much for having me, Dana. I know I'm a total weirdo, haven't I? People are like, what are you? What do you do?
What is this? And we're going to have plenty of time to explain whatever you want to explain. I also wanted to throw in as well, before we kind of get flowing back and forth, that also included in your bio is some background that you experienced some abuse as a child. You lost your father and your stepfather. You were bullied in high school. You're also bullied in the workplace, assaulted in what you call the superficial modeling industry, and which led to some short stints with drugs, which rolled into several dysfunctional relationships, all the while starving yourself and battling a lot of inner demons. So I told you when we were communicating on Podmatch that you were just like exactly what Phoenix and Flame is about on a platter, because we love to hear what was the struggle, because the listeners, they might be in a struggle right now. And I really want people to know that they're not alone. So that's why I love to have guests on my show that are transparent and very real with what they went through, because someone listening might be in that right now and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. It happened to her too. What helped her? How did she deal with it? So, Birgitta, thank you so much for coming to Phoenix and Flame, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1974 on a sunny Tuesday morning on the 25th of June. And I decided it was time to pop out of the womb. Truthfully, did I really want to be born? No, they kicked me. They kicked me down to earth. But yeah, I mean, my childhood was, I grew up, for me, let me just start by saying this. I've probably moved, well, I know I've moved more times than my age, and I'm 50 this year. And I'm a bit of a nomad, a wanderer, a gypsy, if you like. But my childhood was spent in part of it in Holland. And then we moved to Singapore, Malaysia because of my dad. And it was in Malaysia where I was about 10 or 11, and I was assaulted by a friend of the family, or molested by a friend of the family. And I always say to people, look, in the 1980s, life was very different. These days, you can talk about it more openly. But back then, I didn't even know what to do with it. I didn't understand it. It's not like I went to my parents. I just bottled it up. And basically, this guy kind of took my childhood away from me, but I didn't understand it. And when we left Malaysia, it was 1988, and my dad died several months later from coronary heart disease. He knew he was going to die. He didn't take his medication. And it was kind of like he just stepped out of life. He was tired. He was cycling in near the beach. I call it the dunes in Wassenaar, which is not far from The Hague. And he fell off his bike, just took a last breath, and that was it. And when he arrived in hospital, the doctor let him go because otherwise he would have been in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. And that is not, that is not a life. And so she let him go when he was 44 years old. And that really hit me hard. My mom had nothing. She was left with a debt because my dad didn't have a job. My mom actually did get a call like a week later from a company in Indonesia, and they wanted to interview him, but he'd already crossed over. And it was the first time I had actually experienced a headache. I was 14 years old, and the next day when I woke up, I was hoping that it was all a dream, but of course it wasn't. And going back to school was tough for me because I was already insecure. I was very skinny. I'm 5'11". And I always say, though, I was like a lanky giraffe with knobbly knees. And at that point in time, even, Dana, I would make my school lunch, at home, but I would just throw it away. I'd often not eat it. And then, at home at the dinner table, I would eat. So it started pretty young for me. And
So why were you throwing your lunches away? Were you trying to?
It's a good question. I just didn't feel like eating. Just didn't feel like it. And yes, I was bullied in high school because I was very skinny. Going to a classroom, and I always say that's kind of weird because my brain was wired that way. I would, if I needed to go to a classroom and there was a boy in the hallway and I needed to pass the boy, oh, forget it. Heck no. I would take another route to the classroom. That is how scared I was of boys. It was insane.
Do you feel like that was just natural for you at the time, or do you feel like that was an extension of the
Yes,
abuse
it
that
was.
you
Yeah,
endured?
absolutely. It was an extension of the
Okay.
abuse because it wasn't healed. And that's why I always say to people, one bit of trauma creates another bit of trauma if it's not healed. And so I was walking around and I always wanted to be invisible. So I was walking around like, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And my mom would always say, straighten up. But I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and the bullying in high school didn't help. And so after school, I was glad when school was over, but I just wanted to prove a point. I wanted to try, my hand at modeling. And I was like, well, I'm determined to make something of myself and I will show you people. But, but right before at 16, my mom actually put me on a modeling course. And, but it didn't really crick up my confidence in any way. But then I got asked by a hairdresser to do a show and be one of the main models. And I thought, oh, this is great. Yes. Except he cut my hair really short and I felt like into a pixie cut. And I felt really, really ugly. And all I could think of was, oh my gosh, please let my hair grow back. Please let my hair grow back. But it took months. And it was really a problem for me. And I did try my hand at modeling. I was accepted by an agency, but it's a very fickle and superficial world. I wasn't thick-skinned. I was very naive, and I was often rejected. That was me. I didn't really work. I was rejected. People said, "Oh, you look too much like Linda Evangelista or Nikki Taylor or Brooke Shields," and I thought, "Well, it's great. Yeah, give me a chance." And then even when I went to New York, it was like, well, you're too old. But the reason I had my stint with drugs, because in 2000, my stepdad passed away and he had cancer. And I wasn't there. I was in Turkey for a shoot. And when I came back, I knew something had happened. And I called my mom straight away. And she said, yeah, he's crossed over. But I already knew that.
How did you know that?
I call it, at the time I called it my intuition. I just knew.
Okay.
And I had told my stepdad, if the city of Shambhala exists, come back and tell me. He did actually, because he was at the foot of my bed. And that was just his way of saying, yeah, it exists. And I thought, yes, great. And, it was tough for me because my mom actually was leaning on me emotionally and I didn't have an outlet. So I always say, well, I rolled into, the wrong group of friends, but that's not true. I made that choice. And I started taking drugs recreationally for about 3 months. And I suffered from blackouts. And I even had, and I'm sure many of your listeners may have had this same experience. So I kind of blacked out. I wasn't really aware. And then you have sex on drugs, but you're not really there. And that was such a violation for me at that time.
Yeah.
It was like a wake-up call for me. And don't get me wrong, I went to work every single day. But yeah, that was a real wake-up call for me. And I just stopped from one day to the next. And I was also a late bloomer when it came to relationships. I always say I was 21 and a half when I had my first boyfriend, who I met in Istanbul when I was modeling out there. I was actually bartending as well. And I was this freaky person at the time. It was really like, I met this guy. Oh my gosh, and I kissed him. Oh my gosh, and what do I do now? What do I do now? Do I have to be with him? Right? And I felt like I had to be with him. Oh my God. I was thinking, oh my gosh, why did I kiss him then? Why did I do that? And I felt like I just needed to be with him, even though at the end of the day, after 3 years, I just wasn't happy in the relationship. But I did, I moved back to the UK from Istanbul, and I went to college. I did the shortest course possible because my mom was like, you're going to college. I do not want you going to Germany, because he moved back to Germany after that. And then my mom, she's like, why don't you apply to become a stewardess? So I did for Gulf Air, but then I had the interview. And the lady's like, she was from Malaysia. She looked up at me. She goes, oh my God, you're so tall. So I didn't get it. And then there was an interview, or there was an envelope, and I snatched it up. I was quick enough. My mom didn't see the mailman coming, and it was from Virgin, and I was invited for an interview. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not going. I just want to get out. And I did. And my mom kind of kicked me out the house because she didn't want me. She didn't want me to leave. She thought I was making a mistake living with a Turkish guy in Germany. But we have to find that out for ourselves. I think our parents want the best for us, but we still need to experience our life the way that we want. And sometimes it is that our parents want to live their lives through us, and it's not done consciously. It really isn't. They just think they know what's best for their kids, but we all have to find our own way in this world. So there was a time that I didn't speak to my mom, and so that first relationship was very dysfunctional. And I did see my dad at one stage throwing plates on the floor, and he was angry just one time, and that stuck in my head. So in this relationship, I was angry, and I threw plates on the floor.
I bet that was very gratifying to hear the crash of the plates, because sometimes we get so upset and we're looking for a way to demonstrate that and just.
And so I did.
Now let me ask you something. You were going through so much, and you're describing it now so amazingly well. And you said at one point that you knew it was time for boundaries and truth. And since I'm known as the queen of boundaries, that word just like draws me in like a tractor beam. So you said, and then later you said that you inserted boundaries and to live a more authentic version of who you are, who you were, who you are now, who you're meant to be, and who you are becoming. So share with us how that, all the experiences that you've so wonderfully explained so far, kind of has your journey. into truth and boundaries. And why did you need boundaries? And what difference did that make in your life in terms of being
Oh,
authentic?
boundaries. Oh, boundaries. I still suck at them sometimes. Sorry, I do. But I did learn to set my boundaries, but I had to go through a lot more trauma. Uh, um, a lot more trauma. But we don't set our boundaries because we like to be a people pleaser. We want to be accepted by others. Yeah. And so I was a doormat. My goodness. Everyone wiped their feet on me. Oh, Birgitta, can you help me? Birgitta, can you do this? Birgitta, and what did I say? Yes, I can do this for you. I can do this for you. Yes, of course. No problem. And that was just the way it always was. And I left myself out in the cold. And even in my relationships,
Mm.
I went the extra mile because I was trying to fix the broken birds because it said on my forehead, broken bird seeks another broken bird. Please apply. And so that's exactly what I got. I did. But I am so thankful for these dysfunctional relationships because it showed me that actually I had to take that responsibility and start working on the relationship with myself. We don't do that because we often seek happiness without ourselves. We do. And it's that validation. But everything we need
Mhm.
is inside ourselves. In 2009, I hit rock bottom with my ex because he was a crack addict, not anymore. He's doing really well. I'm still in touch with him. He's doing really, really well for himself. But it was at that point I needed that in my life to hit rock bottom and see someone. So, and I didn't even know he was a crack addict at the time because it was very part-time. It was really, really strange. But he landed in bed with Dutch Crips and he was held for ransom. I saved his life together with the police, and he was deported back to the US. But at that point in time, he did want to help when he was over in Holland. He did want to help, but he didn't have a social security number for Holland. So it was kind of a catch-22 situation. But years later, like I said, he's doing extremely well for himself. I take my head off to him for getting rid of his demons. And we're all still a work in progress. I'm still a work in progress. It's never ending.
Mhm.
But that
Mhm.
got me onto the journey of, the holistic journey, because I tried to take my own life because the leader of the Cribs, he threatened me. He threatened to find me and kill me because I had saved my ex. And that shook me to my core. So I found a whole box of ibuprofens. But I just had a 12-hour sleep, and I woke up and I knew I had to do something. And so I did go see a
Mm.
counselor. Yeah, that was the first step. But the counselor it wasn't for me because all she said to me at the end was, Brigitte, you're going to be fine. You're strong enough. And that wasn't going to help me. And so that's when I found a Reiki healer, and that's when my healing journey truly began. And so with boundaries, it took me a long time to understand that. Even the Reiki healer, and I studied under her for 2 years. She also said, you need to set your boundaries. But at that point in time, I didn't really understand, because even years later, I still went the extra mile for other people. And it got so bad that, I would look for jobs for them, even though I was working. I would pay bills. That's just the way that I was wired, and it shouldn't be like that. Um, and then I was the one that turned around and said to the universe, well, why can I not be happy? Yeah, my guides were like, yeah, but look at you. What are you doing? What are you doing with yourself? And yeah, now I do set boundaries a lot more than I used to, because my energy is precious. And people love to take, and take from me. And they
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
You're a healer. It's like, oh, let me bask in your energy. Let me talk to you. I need you. And that's not how it
Mhm.
works. It's not how it works. And so I really needed to retreat and yeah, work on myself.
I want to
Yeah.
toss in here real quickly that you're describing, people, or those of us who are more empathetic and we are good
Yeah.
listeners and we have high vibration, our frequency is high, we have high energy, that other people are drawn to that like moth to
Yes.
flame because they like being around that and they like being understood, they like being listened to because there's so many people out there that are very self
Yes.
focused, very self-absorbed. And so when someone's self-absorbed, they don't have any energy for anybody else. And so for those of us who have set those boundaries and have that empathy, you have to, if you don't have the boundaries, then to your point, they will take and take and take and take and you will be sucked dry.
Yes. And it's all because we want to please other people. We want to try and fit in. We want to be accepted. But the most important thing is that you accept yourself, you embrace yourself, love yourself. And it's hard to love yourself. My dad, he always used to say to us when we were kids, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself, I love you. And I used to go, what?
Mm.
What?
Do what?
What? But I do understand that now. For many years, I thought to myself, I was a misfit. I was misunderstood. I was an ugly duckling. Um, and that was just because of society. It's like society kind of molds us into someone that we are not. And we do that, like I said, just to fit in. And we don't feel peachy in our own skin. We feel I always call it at a dis-ease within ourselves because our spirit is not aligned with our body. And so we act out. And often that is the ego, as I put it. We absorb so much junk within our mind. We just absorb it, and our mind, like, kind of like archives everything, and even our experiences. And our soul is just being beat up. And we deviate so much from our own awareness just to fit in. And it's like, why do we do that?
Mhm.
Why do we do that? Just be true to yourself. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you and how you feel about yourself. Who gives a monkeys what the world thinks of you? It's important that you think the world of yourself.
That's awesome. Now, you had mentioned Reiki and kind of experiencing something very positive, and that kind of sets you on a positive
Mhm.
path there. Can you kind of take us there and sort of lead us to where that
Yes.
led you on your different path and for you to become what you have become today? And that's just so interesting and wonderful how your journey unfolded.
Yeah, so I started off with Reiki, and I always say to people that was my saving grace. I mean, years later, I did my master's and I taught Reiki as well in Florida, actually. So I attuned people, but I wanted to understand more. So I studied drug and alcohol abuse, EFT, the emotional freedom, blah blah blah, the emotional freedom technique, which is the tapping the emotions out
Tapping.
of your system because that's your energy anyway. And it's such a simple, powerful technique, but it works. I became a meditation teacher. What else did I do? I studied so many healing modalities, aromatherapy, aroma touch, relaxation therapy, even Anubis Reiki, but that didn't really resonate with me as much. Angelic Reiki. Oh, I remember this one. Oh, I remember it like yesterday. I'm sitting there and the teacher's like, well, you're not connecting to the archangels. Excuse me? I was so upset. I was really upset. That was ridiculous. I mean, I got the certificate at the end of it. Well, guess what I did? I tore it up. I mean, when you ask the archangels for help, of course they're going to help you. And she was like, well, the archangels are not with you.
How did she
Yeah,
know that?
exactly my point. My friend was there with me, and she's like, you know what? She's totally wrong. They're definitely there. And, but, it's just a learning curve. Some teachers are great and some teachers are not right for you, but that's okay.
Mhm.
And I've come
Yeah.
across that. And like I said, I've studied many healing modalities because I was just a sponge pop. I really wanted to understand and I wanted to heal. Oh, but do not think that was the end of it. It was like, oh, don't think that went. Oh, I went through another disastrous relationship in Florida. absolutely disastrous. The guy moved from an hour away to 2 doors down from me. He had my key, refused to return my key. Uh, he 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 lost his mom, bless his heart, and then he had what was it, reckless, and he didn't pay the fine. And then there was a warrant out for his arrest, which I didn't know. And he just couldn't get out of this funk. He was so depressed. And I helped pay his bills. I found him a job, and I was working 7 days a week. 7 days a week. It was insane. And, I helped him out so much. And it's really, how do I put this? I wrote about this, and it got to a point where I sold my home to get away from him. And then he was evicted from his home, and he found a studio, and he's like, can you please pay the deposit? And I said, well, I will only do that if you put that in a contract in writing, which I did. And I paid it, but I never got it back, of course. And then his place had to be tenanted. And he said to the landlord that he could stay at mine. And I said, you said what? And so I put him up in a hotel with his 2 fat cats. And I had to pay for that. And then he got for a couple of days. And then it was, he said to me, the tenting should be, they should remove the tenting this afternoon. And so I picked him up, and I wasn't happy about that. And I drove through God knows how many red lights. I was speeding. I was at the end of my rope. I was just screaming in the car. I don't even know how a cop didn't stop me. I mean, he was sitting there like, oh my God, oh my God. And he knew at that point he'd gone too far. And I'd moved, and it's really weird because I was often on the floor crying, and you could call that depression. Probably was. I never labeled it as such. I was crying in the dark on the floor, and I was screaming at the universe, saying, you know what, I just want to get better. I don't want this anymore. Please help me. And finally, I started to listen. Because when you're so far gone in this fight or flight mode, it's like it becomes the norm of your life.
Yeah.
Just because I helped others doesn't mean I was a mess myself. But people didn't really see that. I mean, I'd lost so much weight, it was ridiculous. I was skin over bones. Because these were things, Dana, that I could control. I could control my body, so to speak, by starving it. My body was going, you bitch, why are you doing this to me? Seriously, it was that bad. And, I could work like an idiot. It didn't matter where you put me, I would always work because that was my attitude. And, but I needed help. And so it came in the form of this little breadcrumb of my sister at the time who had done Kambo, which is shamanic frog healing, so shamanic medicine. And me being me, I do not like to do a lot of research, but I found a shaman, and I went. Beautiful, beautiful soul. And thank the Lord I took a change of clothes with me. Because, it's like this, what a shaman does, either in the arm or the leg. And sometimes they'll do it on what do you call this part? The pulse? No, not, what do you call this part? The wrist. Yeah. But he did it on my leg, and he burned 4 points on my leg, just the top of the skin. And then he put the monkey. It's a monkey tree frog that's in the Amazonian forest, and they scrape the poison from its back. Don't worry, they don't die. They croak happily ever after. But he put the poison on the dots, on the burnt skin, the top of my skin. And oh my God, I was like, in 10 seconds, it was like, whew, everything went up to my head. And there was this big yellow bucket next to me, and I was just purging. In the meantime, you have to bring 2 liters of water. And I was just purging and purging. It was so physical. And then I had to run to the toilet, and he just helped me because he's so used to it. Comes out everywhere. And totally physical. And I was really, really battling because I was so set in my ways. It took like 4 hours. And he just said to me, Brigitte, do you know why it took you 4 hours? I'm like, no. He's like, because your ego was sitting in the driver's seat and was refusing to let go. And I was so clear after that. Yes, I went back 2 more times, but when I got home, I had a really good night's sleep, and then I made a whole bucket list of things that I wanted to do. So one of them was like skydiving, and I did. I have a fear of heights. I needed peeing in my pants. And the guy's like, are you ready to jump? I thought, sugary banana. Well, I'm stuck to you, so I have no choice. So how we jumped from 25,000 feet. I was like frozen in midair. But after that, when the parachute opened, it was amazing, actually. And it's very funny how when we're in the midst of drama, we don't always understand what we're going through or why this experience is happening to us. Actually, we should think it's not why is this happening to us, but why is this happening for us? Big difference. And I was just up there up there looking from above below, and I thought, wow, we create a lot of drama out of our experiences that we can easily resolve when we take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. We make such a oh gosh, what's the English expression? I don't know. I know it in Dutch. We make an elephant out of a mosquito, right? We make things bigger than they actually are.
Mountain
Yes,
from a molehill, yes. I knew what you meant when you said that. Well, Birgitta, let me ask you this, because you have so much to share, and you've had such a interesting and varied journey. And I know that my listeners are thinking, oh my gosh, I need to know more. So I know you have your book,
Yeah.
but tell us about your book. Tell us about where you want my listeners to go to get more of you, to be able to buy your book, what the title is, and all that kind of stuff.
So my first book is called Becoming Authentically Me, which talks about this. The first part talks about the shifting consciousness, and the second part talks about all the trauma that I've been through, and that life, and it's infused with many of the fun channeled messages of the archangels, the ascended masters, and it's really about what's life all about. It's really about a return to a love for ourselves and each other, and understanding that, that we are divine alchemists. We create our lives because we are creators, and what we think we create, we manifest into existence. That's how powerful we are, but we don't realize that. And so there's so much beauty in understanding the power of manifestation. So there are several exercises in there as well, and it doesn't matter what we go through, no matter the pain that we go through and the suffering, there is always a way out, because the more we suffer, the more challenges that we have in our lives, the bigger the opportunity to heal and to become more aware of ourselves and our experiences. And the more that we elevate our consciousness and start to understand what life is all about. So can we live a life fulfilled? Absolutely, absolutely. But we need to get out of our own way, and we need to understand why we are going through certain things. And for the longest time, I didn't understand. It was really like, well, why is this? Why? And I needed to flip the script and just take that accountability for my life. It doesn't matter what happened in my youth. Yeah, when we grow up, it's like you want to live a better life, and it starts with you. It starts with shifting that mindset and healing the pain, embracing the pain, and walking through that darkness to get out into the clearing on the other side and understand that life is actually a beautiful experiment to experience.
Yes, that is just absolutely amazing. Now you have a second
Yes.
book, correct? That just so what is that book called?
So the second one is a collaboration that I did with 13 other amazing, inspiring women. And that one came out a couple of days ago. Yes. Um, and I wrote a chapter in that. It's called A Journey to the Light Within. And it's funny because I'm the only light language healer in the book. But it's that one is just being going like hotcakes. It's insane.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now do you have the website that I have for you
Yes.
is
Yes, it is. Mhm.
powersoulhealing.com. Okay. Okay. So if listeners, I know without a doubt that you're going to want to access, more of what Birgitta has to share and say in her wisdom and her journey. So if you go to powersoulhealing.com, and I will put this in the show notes, so don't worry. So that'll be there along with a link to the books and that kind of thing. So Birgitta, I really appreciate you being willing to spend your time and to be so transparent about your journey and what you've experienced and some of the things that you've learned along the way with my listeners. Thank you so, so much.
No, thank you so, so much for having me. And I always say to people, if you are suffering or you are in pain or just going through something that you don't know how to get out of, just reach out to someone, whether that's a friend or family or just a counselor. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you decide to heal as long as it aligns with your spirit. But know that you have the capability within you to get better and to live a life fulfilled because we are all deserving of that. And we are all deserving of that love for ourselves.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Listeners, I know you have heard many things today that you're thinking, this is wonderful. And I know a friend or a coworker or a relative that could really, really benefit from what Brigitte has to share. Then take this podcast episode, copy and paste the link in text and email, post it on your favorite social media sites. Let's get it out there. Let's get Brigitte's word out there. Let's grow our Phoenix and Flame community so that we know that we are not alone. I thank you for spending your day with me. I hope the rest of your afternoon goes well. This is Dana on Phoenix and Flame.